When the NASCAR Cup Series takes the green flag this Sunday, it will have been 70 days since the last time these drivers were on a real racetrack. In wake of the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic, pretty much every major sports league across the world has been forced to shut down at least temporarily. NASCAR has been no exception, but due to the nature of motorsports, where the athletes are naturally socially distanced from one another, NASCAR is one of the first major sports returning to competition. Of course, this comes with trade-offs. No fans will be allowed at the next few races at least. Practice and qualifying have been scrapped for every race minus the Coke 600 at Charlotte on May 24th. The number of team members allowed at the racetrack is limited. Very little media will be there. Everyone must be wearing masks, and NASCAR has said they could fine team members up to $50,000 if they don't follow these rules. On the plus side, if everything goes well these next few weeks and NASCAR is able to maintain a safe environment, this could be huge for the future of stock car racing. With very few other live sports on television at the moment, this could be a great chance for NASCAR to reintroduce itself to new audiences. This isn't the same NASCAR your grandpa used to watch. Forget about the last few years, a lot has changed just in the 2 months racing has been suspended. Today's video is going to attempt to get you up to speed with everything that's happened since NASCAR stopped racing in March, and will hopefully prepare folks who are new to stock car racing for what's to come in the next few weeks. Here is everything you need to know before NASCAR returns. My name is Eric, and usually I come in here a few times a week and we talk about the current events in and around the world of NASCAR, but today we're talking about the big picture. Firstly, the NASCAR Cup Series returns this Sunday, May 17th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox for a 400-mile race around Darlington Raceway in South Carolina. The last time the Cup Series raced at all was at Phoenix on March 8th. NASCAR completed the first 4 races of the 2020 season before competition was suspended. Denny Hamlin won his 3rd career Daytona 500, Joey Logano nabbed wins at Las Vegas and Phoenix, with Alex Bowman snagging the trophy in Southern California. Here is a brief look at the current point standings. For newer fans, the Cup Series features a 36-race season. After the 26th race of the season, 16 drivers qualify for the final 10-race playoffs. Yes, NASCAR has playoffs. It used to be called the Chase, but I guess they thought that was confusing to people. You qualify for the playoffs either by winning a race or by having enough points to fill out the remaining spots in the top 16. As you can see, Joey Logano is at the top of the playoff grid because he leads the series with 2 wins already this season. Now, a lot has happened since early March, so let's talk about some of the huge storylines that had the entire NASCAR world rumbling. One of the first things NASCAR did once competition was suspended was ban all forms of testing. Parts of that ban have been lifted recently as teams have now been allowed to return to their race shops in North Carolina. Pretty quickly, NASCAR and Fox were able to work with the well-known simulator iRacing to create an invitational series for Cup Series drivers to participate in. Most of the current stars of the Cup Series participated, and even retired stars such as Dale Earnhardt Jr., Bobby Labonte, and Jeff Gordon joined in on the action. They ran a total of 7 pro invitational races, wrapping up with a virtual race at the historical North Wilkesboro Speedway. Hendrick Motorsports driver William Byron, who is known for his success on iRacing, won 3 of the events, and while technically nobody was keeping score, Timmy Hill ended up with the most points, if we based it off the traditional NASCAR points rules. It was entertaining for many fans to watch a lot of the stars of NASCAR, such as Jimmy Johnson or Kyle Busch, kind of have to start from scratch and learn the simulator on the fly. And in my opinion, it was pretty cool to see a lot of these drivers take the competition aspect seriously while not letting it get in the way of them having fun and putting on a good show for the fans at home. Fox broadcast all of the races on FS1 and on the main Fox in certain markets, and the broadcast featured plenty comedic highlights, most featuring in-race reporter Clint Boyer and company.
That's the best sponsor for Boyer to be behind, Dent Wizard. Oh! Whoa!
No!
Ricky, did he get him?
Yeah,
Yes, he did. It's the big one.
Oh,
Clint.
no, Boyer.
What happened? I got bubbled.
These iRaces were a hit. Every Sunday afternoon broadcast drew in between 900,000 and 1.3 million live viewers. These races actually became the most watched esports events in American television history. From Alex Bowman blaming Rex on his dog to Denny Hamlin's daughter turning off his screen in the middle of the race, the iRacing Pro Invitational provided a welcome relief to race fans trying to escape the daily stress of the pandemic. Now, there were a few bumps in the road, however. After rage quitting early in one of the Pro Invitational races, driver Bubba Wallace actually lost a real-life sponsor, Blue Emu.
Still there. Yep, he just come up and wrecked the hell out of you again on purpose.
Y'all have it going. Peace out.
Blue Blue Emu had put their logo on Wallace's virtual car for that race and were not happy when Bubba chose to exit the race early in the broadcast. Now, if you want to talk about real-life consequences, look no further than what happened to Kyle Larson in April. Larson, one of the brightest young stars in the NASCAR Cup Series, was caught on a hot mic during an iRacing livestream using a racial slur. As soon as the clip became public, everyone braced for the inevitable chain of events that quickly transpired. Larson was suspended by his team, Chip Ganassi Racing, and was then suspended by NASCAR, with NASCAR mandating that Larson complete sensitivity training before he would be considered for reinstatement. Major sponsors McDonald's, Credit One Bank, Chevrolet, and more ended their relationship with Larson, which gave Chip Ganassi no choice but to fire him. Kyle Larson, who is a Drive for Diversity graduate, posted an apology video on social media the day after the incident and has since pretty much gone dark from social media.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm sorry. Last night I made a mistake and said the word that should never, ever be said. And there's no excuse for that. I wasn't raised that way.
Now, Larson reportedly completed sensitivity training and was allowed to race in a World of Outlaws sprint car dirt track race last week. Per reports, Larson is determined to get back into NASCAR sometime soon, even though both of his Charlotte homes are actually listed for sale. In need of a new driver to pilot the 42 car, many fans, including myself, assumed Chip Ganassi would turn to Ross Chastain. An aggressive but very talented young driver with contractual ties to the organization, Chastain seemed like the obvious choice. Insert Matt Kenzen, the 2003 Cup Series champ who's been retired.
I never used the R word. I never officially retired. I was just resting.
That's fair. A lengthy hiatus, you might say. Resting, as he put it, for the last year and a half. Kenzen last drove in a NASCAR race at the end of 2018 and has not raced full-time in NASCAR since 2017. The NASCAR world was shocked. NASCAR granted Kenzen a playoff waiver, meaning that as long as he wins a race and finishes in the top 30 in points, he would be allowed to race for the championship despite missing the first 4 races. Interestingly enough, it was reported that Chip Ganassi also called Carl Edwards about driving the 42 car, and Edwards reportedly took a couple of days to think about it before he ultimately declined their offer. All of Larson's main sponsors are sticking with Matt Kenseth and Chip Ganassi Racing. Kenseth brings stability and veteran experience to Chip Ganassi Racing, but at age 48, he is also going to be the oldest full-time competitor in the Cup Series once we get back to racing. Let's go back to Ross Chastain, the watermelon farmer from Florida who has quickly become a fan favorite in the lower NASCAR series. Chastain spent the last 3 races before the suspension filling in for Ryan Newman in the Roush Fenway Racing number 6 car. Ryan Newman was injured after a horrific crash on the last lap of this year's Daytona 500. Miraculously, Newman survived the wreck, but a head injury kept him out of the race car for several weeks. A few weeks back, NASCAR actually announced a new bar would be added to the roll cage at the other superspeedway races later this year as a result of this accident. Newman was recently cleared by doctors to return to the racetrack, which means once NASCAR gets back rolling this weekend at Darlington, Ryan Newman will once again be behind the wheel of the 6 car. And will once again prove that, my gosh, he is one tough son of a gun. Now, like Kenseth, Ryan Newman was also granted a playoff waiver, so he is eligible to still run for the championship. As for Ross Chastain, he's going to focus on running for the Xfinity Series championship this year with Kaulig Racing, with an eye towards a potential top Cup Series ride in 2021. In other news, back in April, NASCAR announced that the next-gen race car will not make its debut until 2022, pushing the release date back a full year. This is a result of the pandemic forcing many of the parts suppliers and manufacturers to close or operate at limited capacity. NASCAR is already on a serious time crunch trying to get their most technologically advanced race car ready for competition by next year, so a delay was not entirely surprising given the circumstances, albeit still a little bit disappointing. NASCAR also recently revealed the list of nominees for next year's Hall of Fame class. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burton, and Carl Edwards make their debuts on the ballot. This is the first year of NASCAR separating the ballot into 2 sections, Pioneer and Modern Era. 1 nominee will be selected from the Pioneer Era ballot, and 2 will be selected from the Modern Era ballot. Jake Elder, Banjo Matthews, Red Farmer, Herschel McGriff, and Ralph Moody are on the Pioneer ballot, and Dale Earnhardt Jr., Carl Edwards, Jeff Burton, Neil Bonnet, Harry Gant, Harry Hyde, Larry Phillips, Ricky Rudd, Kirk Shelmerdine, and Mike Stefanik are on the Modern Era ballot for this year. Now that is most of the news from the past couple of months, but there are still a few more storylines worth discussing. Jimmy Johnson, 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, is still planning on retiring from full-time NASCAR competition at the end of this year. He made this announcement before the season started, but with the pandemic wreaking havoc on the NASCAR schedule, Johnson left the door open to the possibility that he might return for 2021. However, last we heard from Johnson a couple weeks ago, he said he was pretty set on making this his last full-time season. So not a guarantee that he's retiring at the end of this year, but it sounds pretty likely at this point. Now, Jimmie Johnson last won a points-paying Cup Series race almost 3 years ago in 2017. But he did show some good speed at the beginning of this year before the hiatus. Now, if Jimmie Johnson does win the championship this year, he will break a 3-way tie with Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt and will become, in my opinion, the greatest NASCAR driver of all time. If he wins an 8th championship, I mean, come on now. But now as we look forward to the rest of this season, NASCAR's schedule features some new and unprecedented changes. The first Cup race is May 17th at Darlington this weekend, but then Wednesday night, May 20th, they will race again at Darlington. May 24th is the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, but then Wednesday, May 27th will feature another race at Charlotte. Midweek races have been deemed necessary, especially because NASCAR has made it clear that they plan on running a full 36-race Cup Series schedule this year. Those extra Darlington races, as well as the extra Charlotte race, will be replacing races at Sonoma Raceway, Chicagoland Speedway, and one of the Richmond dates. A tough break, especially for Sonoma and Chicago, because that means they will not have a NASCAR race in 2020. Now, I didn't forget about the NASCAR Xfinity and Gander Truck Series. The Xfinity Series will restart on May 19th, also at Darlington Raceway, and the Truck Series is set to restart May 26th at Charlotte. Both series are still planning to run the entire schedule, but certain dates are likely to move around. NASCAR has not confirmed any dates for June or beyond, but reports suggest that NASCAR is still looking at running at racetracks close to the immediate Charlotte, North Carolina area so that teams and drivers don't have to spend whole weekends away from their hometown. Like I mentioned earlier, almost all of these races will be one-day shows where there will be no practice or qualifying. Drivers and teams will just show up, set the cars up, and race. Now, as NASCAR returns to competition here over the next couple of weeks, they will be doing so under a microscope. The entire sports world and many new voices in the media will be paying close attention to their procedures to see what works, or more importantly, what might fail. Much like many businesses in the United States today, NASCAR, and specifically a lot of its race teams, find themselves in murky waters. Many teams, especially smaller teams, have laid off much or all of their employees in recent weeks. NASCAR corporate themselves have laid off a significant portion of their staff, and some of that is due to a recent merger with ISC, the company that owns many of the tracks NASCAR races at, but still. NASCAR executives have even taken a 20 to 25% pay cut during this hiatus. No racing means no sponsor or TV money is coming in. Fox and NBC both signed multi-billion-dollar contracts with NASCAR in the last decade, but the only way that money actually comes through is if the real races are actually televised. Getting these races on national TV helps alleviate a lot of problems NASCAR is facing, and especially problems some of the race teams have in front of them. Attendance and ratings have consistently slipped over the past several years, but perhaps this is NASCAR's big moment to turn some of those numbers around. This is all dependent, of course, on NASCAR creating a safe and secure environment for all of those at the racetrack. Health and safety of the workers and competitors comes first, which is why NASCAR is threatening such harsh penalties for those who don't follow their guidelines. There is a lot that has to go right these next few weeks, but if everything does, NASCAR could inject itself back into the mainstream conversation for the first time in years. Honestly, if things go horribly wrong in the next few weeks, I'm sure they'll also be in the mainstream once again, but for all the wrong reasons. NASCAR has a plan, and if it works, they will have a lot to celebrate. As the entire country faces an uncertain future, perhaps a bunch of cars turning left can help millions of people see a possible light at the end of the tunnel. That was kind of cheesy, but I hope the sentiment came across. Thank you for watching this video. If you're a NASCAR fan, I encourage you share this video with perhaps the non-NASCAR fans in your life, especially if they're big sports fans and are looking for something to tune into this weekend. Subscribe if you are new. I talk about NASCAR every day, every week, all year long, so if you like talking about cars go in circles, you've come to the right place. So thank you for watching this video. I greatly appreciate the support. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. See you soon.